Hello, I'm Rob Smith, and I'm posting this because this is a thought that I've passed on to a number of people down the years, and I've always had a lot of very positive feedback from it. And it's something which, when somebody passed it on to me, made a pretty transformative difference to me in how I was able to cope with not being able to sleep properly. When you've got too much stuff going on in your mind, when you've got those millions of thoughts whirling round and round in your head, and you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it doesn't matter what you do, you toss and turn, you lie there, you close your eyes, you concentrate as much as you can, and yet you just can't get back to sleep. And that leaves you in a disastrous state for the next day, and there's nothing you can do about it. Well, this is something that I'm going to tell you that I do, that works for me, that really makes a difference. And it's really simple. It's a really straightforward thing. And it's slightly counterintuitive, because what it involves is when you wake up with that thought tornado whirling around in your head, you get up. You actually get up, go downstairs, put the light on, get a pad out and a pen, and you start writing things down. So what we're talking about here is not writing a diary. It's not even a journal as such. What it is just getting thoughts out of your head and onto the paper. And the reason for doing that is there's half a dozen separate reasons, but putting it simply, quite often what you think is a really big set of problems, what you think is like an impenetrable thicket of thoughts that you just can't get through, when you actually come to analyse it and write them down, you might find that there's actually only one or two things that you're really bothered about for the next day that's keeping you awake. It might be something as simple as the fact that you've got to remember to take the car for a service, or that you've got to take the children to the dentist when you pick them up from school, or something really basic and simple and obvious. And you find that once you've written it down and your brain isn't worrying about trying to remember that the next day anymore, you can park it. You've got a note. You know that when you wake up, you're going to see the note. You can go back to sleep. So that's the primary, the simple bit of it. The second part of it is when you've got something that's a bit more emotional, intractable, long-term, something that's really bothering you. Maybe you're going through a big life change. Maybe you're going through relationship problems. Maybe you're having problems at work. Maybe you've got a business issue that you're wrestling with. Whatever it is, when it's one of those bigger problems, what's actually going on with your brain all the time, and part of the reason why it's keeping you awake, is because your subconscious is working on that problem. And when you write stuff down and you let it out, quite often the solution that you've been looking for is already there. It's in your brain. You just got to transcribe it and get it down on paper. And if you go through the process of writing things down, it's a very different mental process that you go through, because it forces you to stop and to slow down and to think about what you're writing as you're writing it. And it clarifies your thought processes amazingly. Now, this isn't something that you're writing for anybody else to read. You're not looking to keep this as your great diary of thoughts. You're not looking to try and become the Samuel Pepys of the 21st century, although, to be fair, that could happen. Great. But principally what it's for is just to get the thoughts out of your head and onto the paper. And that does two things at the same time. Firstly, it clarifies your thoughts immediately so that you can look at what the problems are that you think you've got in your head, and you can analyse them in a much more rational way when you look at them the next day. And secondly, you've slowed down that thought tornado so that you can go back upstairs to bed and lie down there, knowing that you've written something down, knowing you can refer to it later, and you can just park it all and get some sleep. And that's the really crucial thing, because once you get some sleep, then you can function so much better the next day. You can tackle all the problems that you've got, and it just makes an incredible difference. And I'm only telling you this because it genuinely works for me. I do it all the time. I did it this morning at about 4:30, and it just means that you're then set up for the next day in a proper, thoughtful way. Anyway, for what it's worth, I just wanted to pass that on. I hope that at least one of you might find it useful. Thanks.